Hello, my loves. This is Johanna Burkhardt. I am a multidimensional channel, teacher, healer, and author. And I am obsessed with all things metaphysical, esoteric, galactic, and of course, the healing journey. And I'm here to share my stories, my wisdom, and my teachings about being human in the illusion that we call reality. Welcome to Cosmic Blonde. Hello, my loves. I am excited because today we have a special guest and we're going to be talking about awakenings. And there's going to be a lot of episodes that I do this on where we talk about different people's experiences as they went through their spiritual awakening, because it's very common for us to hear about Kundalini awakenings, spontaneous awakenings, awakenings through trauma. And mine was a combination of trauma and a slow burn. The trauma definitely came in and accelerated things at different points and made it go 10 times faster, which tends to happen. But this is not the norm, believe it or not. It is not the norm of how people wake up. And there are so many different stories out there and so many different things that people go through that I feel like we need to share those so that people don't feel alone in their journey. Because I know for me, when I was going through mine, I had so many people around me that had gone through spontaneous Kundalini awakenings, and I didn't know how to label mine. I thought something was wrong with me. I thought I did something wrong, or maybe I wasn't going through an awakening. Maybe mine was different. And it was different, and that's okay. But we need to make it normal that what you go through is exactly what is meant for you. And so this beautiful soul that I'm about to introduce, I don't actually remember the moment she came into my life. She will probably talk about that while we're talking. But she is just a beautiful light. And I have had sessions with her and connect with her on and off, and thought it would be awesome to have her on the show. So without further ado, I welcome Elise Galperin. Thank you so much for being here. Are you
Thank
excited?
you, Johanna. I am excited. Yeah, and it took a lot to get here. It takes a lot of scheduling and it takes a lot of communication to help with my kids and organize all that. And that's another reason why I'm here is to prove that like moms can do things
Yeah.
and we can show up for ourselves. And it takes multiple times. I had to cancel with you and reschedule and but you can do it if you're willing enough.
Yeah. So
So thank you.
tell me just a little bit about where you were before your awakening. So let's just kind of go through a little bit of a timeline of like right before you realized you were going through an awakening, like what was going on in your life? Was there anything dramatic or was it completely normal? Just give me a little insight of what was happening right before you realized, hey, I think something's happening here.
So before the awakening, I had had everything I had ever manifested, wished, and dreamed of. So my lowest point was at my highest external reality, which was so conflicting for me. I had gotten married. I had three children. I had a career and I had a beautiful home, have actually. Um, but I was so low um, that there was no other. I had to question something. I had to wake up. There was a force, there was a pull that was taking place that wasn't matching. How could I feel so much shame and guilt, but live in this reality where I had been given so much beautiful abundance? And I rode with this for a while until COVID hit. And in my career, some of these truths that I guess the collective had perceived also as a fact, right, were being unveiled. And so in that, I was like, okay, so this shame and this guilt and this reality that I thought was the foundation of all truth is now showing another side, a different perspective. And at that time, all I could witness really was it. I saw it as a lie. I saw everything as a mask, as if everything had been paraded in front of me to deceive me. And so I started to react. And in reactions, I was able to gain an awareness of myself. And that was about 2 years of that unraveling and that awareness. And it was sometimes reckless. It was very rebellious. And remember, I'm a mother of three. I'm an educator. I am known. I'm a leader of 2 national organizations. And I'm making moves because reacting at this point is all I knew. It was almost like a force outside of me. It was like I felt like I didn't have any other choice. But I know now we always have a choice. And that was the choice that I made in order to see myself.
And just so we know, like this is what she's talking about right now. This is a part of the awakening. And most people don't think that, right? They don't think that this is a part of the awakening, but there always is a darkness before the dawn. Like when think about it, like there's death and rebirth, right? They're one and the same. So you go into the dark tunnel. You're like, I'm in the light. I go into the dark tunnel and I come back out into the light. So while you were in this space, which is so interesting to hear you say, because so many people think that when they get everything that they're desiring, that everything magically is going to feel better. And it's not the case. Like if you don't do the inner work, it won't matter how many billions you have or anything. You could have the perfect relationship, the perfect everything, and you're going to be sad or shameful or guilty. And thankfully for you, I don't think you lost it all, but a lot of people do lose it all because of their reaction of that feeling.
Mm-hmm.
They have that happens. I'm curious though, what lies or what programming was presented to you, if you even know, that you were seeing in the collective that really like cracked your mind open to this, ain't it?
Well, I, so in my perspective at that time, nobody's actions were matching their words. And so the people that were above me, that were able to put me in a box and say, this is how you need to act in order to be what we want you to be. And that's being a teacher is a whole nother episode, right?
Right.
But that's kind of how I felt. You stay in this box, and I never fit in the box. And so I was already an outsider. I used to tell my students, like, the 2 rats in my closet, those are my friends. So I don't let the janitor kill them. So I was really,
I freaking love that.
I was very out there. I was like, so already I was, but it was okay because that's just who I was. That was my box. It's okay that she's weird because that's just, she's allowed to be that way because we let her have that box,
And that was authentically you though. That's why they probably loved you.
Yes, it did feel until I was like, well, you're not being authentic though, because you said this to all of us and you're not doing this. And you're supposed to be the leader. And so once I started pointing fingers, my fear started to get bigger.
Which, by the way, when you point fingers and you blame, that is the moment that you start to separate. That is separation. And sometimes we need to do that to be able to look at ourselves.
I still didn't know that, Johanna. I wish, the pointing fingers thing, I've come to my own conclusions and my own awareness that feels right. But that was at the end of it when, because the energy got bigger.
Yeah.
And once I was pointing fingers, I was like, there's got to be other people that are as angry as I am. And so I found those people because what the thinker thinks, the prover proves.
Yeah.
And so that thing, it grew. Boy, did I find my haters, right? And there was a whole group that I found that was all, their whole purpose was to take down the system, my system that I was working for. And that got really scary and tricky because I was working in that system, but also trying to take down that system, which, so, there's this, if I look at it as, a reflection of me and me playing the game as me, I was just an inner conflict. I was working
Yeah.
against myself at all ends. I mean, how can you work for an entity and try to destroy the entity? It just showed that I was at war with myself. And so I started to see that I wasn't going anywhere. And and I but I did have to have, some breakdown, which I didn't lose everything because I was telling my husband what I was doing because I couldn't deal with the guilt. And so I was like, I called the mayor on some leaders today, and and I was trying to break the hierarchy of what they were saying you had to do. Like, well, you have to go here if you have an issue. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go to the president. Um, it didn't work. I still had to go to the person I had the issue with, which was
Yeah.
ultimately me, but I didn't know that at the time. Um, but I was telling my husband because I needed accountability for when it did break, for when I didn't get fired, but I thought I was going to because I was so naughty, or it felt, you know. But the
You
good
felt
thing
like you were
was
doing something wrong.
I did, but
Yeah.
I was doing it anyways, which I now see that I had to do that, um, because what ended up happening is I was able to quit the job. I think my husband and I both saw that something wasn't right and I needed to have some contrast.
Yeah.
And thankfully, I'm very grateful for that. I'm very grateful that I have a partner that was non-judgmental, that comes from a background that can see, um, that can be neutral. And when I took the step back, I started to have the panic attacks. And so they would come on, which is kind of beautiful now, but they'd come on at like 3:33 in the morning or 4 in the morning. So I would just wake up. I can't breathe. I'm on the floor. I want to go to the hospital. I think I'm dying. Um, and now that I think about that time zone and like the veil that kind of lifts at those times and how spirit enters, um, but that was probably my final aha moment, is the lack of control that I had over my physical state. Um, the vomiting, I couldn't breathe. How can you lack so much self-control that you can't even find your breath?
Yeah.
I would defecate, like I would just go to the bathroom. Um, so at that point, you're like, okay, well, just take me then.
Yeah.
I give up. Like, this is just too much. It's too hard. I have everything and but I have zero control. And once I did that, once I vocalized that thought, a manifestation, I feel like, started to render in front of me. And one thing kind of led to another. I was able to find my breath and some breath work. Um, and in finding that breath work, I had a point I wanted to get here, but well, I'll just say October came. October was my most recent awakening. And that's when I was led to you. But this awakening taught me a broader awareness, because my whole life was up into all led to October. It all led to me meeting you. It all, I could, like, once it came, I was like, oh, I get it. Um, it was these stepping stones my whole life. It was never, I never actually died for 7 minutes or had, the some huge tragic thing, but I had these big moments and these big stepping stones that brought a broader awareness.
Yeah.
And this was just this was the biggest one.
Yeah. Because it's
where
never
I
final.
actually, it's never final.
It's
Nope,
never
it's
final.
never final. And that's a bit painful, but I think if I
Yeah.
accept it, I'm in a better place. But it was a bigger awareness to where I could see myself reacting. It was like I stepped outside and I could watch myself and say, there's your pattern. There's the family cycle. There's where you need to learn your lesson. But I couldn't, it was like I was stuck in a dream and I couldn't undo it. I couldn't make any
Yeah.
changes. So that was like torture
Yeah.
because you're just like, like it's so hard to watch myself. And then these these birds came into my yard. These two like red-tailed falcons, I think they're called, and they stayed in my backyard for like 3 days. And that led me to get like an astrology app and kind of dabble in some like shamanic journeying and animal spirits. And I come to find out they have a message for me. And my astrology app was like, a change is coming and it's going to happen rapidly. And so I'm thinking, all my wishes, all my pretend illusions that are going to fill the void are like going to come true. And I'm like, what?
Right.
you know? And that's not what happened. And then I found you. And when I found you, it was an image of a peacock, and it was like becoming your best self on Insight Timer. And I have these little flashbacks. I have a peacock tattooed on my left side, which is where, spirit enters or where knowledge can enter.
Do you
And
really? I didn't know that.
I do.
I love
And I got it.
the peacock is a symbol of God. It represents the number 7. Like the peacock is royalty. It is a very, when you see a peacock and a peacock continuously shows up, that is a very sacred symbol.
Well,
Very.
it showed up in my third pregnancy. And in my pregnancies, I realized too, like, I'll get to what my pattern was, which I've learned through your coursework. And then, how I was able to close the chapter on my work, on my old career, because I was like, oh, I was the mask. But yeah, the peacock showed up in my third pregnancy in the shamanic journeying and stuff. And I was like, okay, that's it. Like, that's my spirit animal. And then I realized when I got the tattoo, which I was so asleep when I got the tattoo, like, I don't know why I was there. I think I was spending college scholarship money on the tattoo. I couldn't tell you why I got the peacock, but the experience was kind of like orgasmic, which was so
Mhm.
strange. And I wanted to like marry the tattoo artist after he gave it to me. And I was like, that was it. I couldn't explain it. And then when I kind of started to wake up, I was like, oh, maybe it was spirit.
Yeah.
I went to that convention. I could never tell you why. People are like, what does that tattoo mean? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know why. But now I know.
Yeah.
It
But
was,
that same
there
thing
was a
happened to
different
me.
hand.
I didn't realize how many parallels we had in our story because when I was 18, I got a tattoo on my back, on my spine, like a center of my spine of the sun and the moon colliding. And everything in my charts are about me being in balance and balancing the worlds, balancing the realities, bringing people into the new realities. So it's perfect that the sun and the moon collide because it's masculine and feminine. But when I got it, I had no clue. I was 18, I was partying, I was super asleep, and it was like a beacon of light on the wall. I was like, that's the one. Sure, I'm going to do that one. So the reason I bring this up is because subconsciously we always know whether we realize it consciously or not. We do, because I have talked to like 20, 30 people easily that have gotten tattoos, that got a tattoo, didn't know why they were getting the tattoo. 10 years later, they're like, I know what it means. And I never knew back then, but I'm like, this synchronicity happened in my life. And I'm like, holy shit, this is on my body. So it's, it's interesting. And I'm so glad you brought that up because I think a lot of people will resonate with that. So you got the peacock tattoo. And then what was because that was I remember you messaging me and saying, I was looking for symbols and you had a lot of the symbols and the peacock was one of
Oh,
them.
yeah. Even still, like everything you put out, I'll have a question and then you put a podcast out. And I was like, I don't, unfortunately, I don't need a reading from her because she already answered my
Yeah.
questions. So, and then I could
Ask
go
and
for
you
so
shall
long. And
receive.
then, yes. And then you have another thing. And I'm like, oh, I'm just so grateful for you. I'm so grateful. There, I was like, there was a while where I feel like I was just like giving you all my energy, which is a pattern of mine, and then I was like, okay, I can own my own and have and hold love for her because I was supposed to be with her. I was supposed to meet her on this journey, but I don't have to like, I was like, I was accidentally, I think, being like, she
Yeah.
is like, and I was like,
Right.
wait, I think she also said that it's okay to love myself. I know that I
Yep.
chose it, but, honor that she gave me the space to see something I couldn't see or change. It was
Yeah.
actually, you helped me find my power to make a change because I could see it,
Yeah.
but I couldn't change it.
Yeah.
And that's what's torture. So,
Didn't
you
my
know,
tattoo also was a symbol for you on my arm? Was that you? My
I
infinity
don't think
symbol?
that was me. Mm-mm. No,
Because
but
some
then after I saw yours, I see the infinity symbol everywhere now.
do you?
Everywhere. Everywhere. I like
a,
point it out to my kids. I'm like, there it is, there it is, there it
a
is.
lot of people find me on Insight Timer. So I'm really glad I that was a move I made years ago. And I really am glad that I did that because it's such a great platform.
So, okay, so I found, yeah, so the birds came and I kind of delve into getting some apps, which before, I used social media for ill intention, ill will kind of, I used it to prove something that was my truth because because I was angry, right?
Yeah.
And so I was really afraid to reach back out to any social or any sort of community because I thought that that same thing was going to happen again. But I
Yeah.
didn't realize when you're different, you know, your app is also different, right?
Yeah.
And so that did feel safe for somebody who was beginning. I was like, these people aren't going to hurt me. They're not going to give me information I don't want to hear. Because I was starting to slowly realize that the reason why I suffered so deeply was because I didn't have standards and I didn't have boundaries. And so if I did have those things, which is what becoming your best self on Insight Timer, which is what that taught me. And I was like, oh, okay. So if I would have had boundaries and I would have had standards, then I could have made what decision was right for me in that school setting.
Yeah.
But I didn't have any of that. So I was just, I was projecting and that was reflecting. And then it was growing
Yeah.
until you die. I mean,
Yeah.
that's kind of what happens. You crumble hard and you have panic attacks or, you get the tower card.
Yeah.
Um, and I was literally on the floor. I mean, I couldn't move. I have 3 kids. I'm at home and I can't get up. So,
But that
um,
was your death. Whether you realize it or not, that was your ego death. And I actually don't believe that your panic attacks, and especially the ones that were happening in the middle of the night, were panic attacks. Because something that I have talked about, I don't know how much I've talked about it, but a lot of times when we feel, especially things that are related to the heart, whether it's a panic attack, heart palpitations, have interesting, weird things happening in the body that we can't explain, that is what they call the crystalline body activating, to where you're literally going through an alchemical process. Because remember, ascension is the process of carbon moving into crystalline, and the human body is carbon based. Our DNA, our physical DNA is carbon based, but we have all this etheric DNA. And so what happens is we go through this alchemical process, and whatever is not needed, let's call it the waste of that process, the things that is no longer needed, we get rid of. So you defecating, you purging, you going through those processes was you just releasing the residual. And a lot of that was you just going through that process. Because when I had mine, I thought I was having a stroke. In fact, doctors told me I was having a stroke. I was given medicine that could have killed me because they thought I was having a stroke, but that wasn't the case. So we go through these physical vessels, and by all means, don't take my word for your medical condition and not go to the doctor. Like, be smart, have all the physical things checked out. They couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. They realized, oh shit, this isn't a stroke. And now we have to figure out what's wrong with her. And they never could. And so, that was a part of my journey. But, sometimes there is going to be a medical reason. So again, do your due diligence, but know that we are never separate from anything. And so, the things that happen in the sun, the things that happen in the planets, the things that happen in the energy, in the collective, it all affects us whether we're conscious of it or not. And so I really firmly want to give you that perspective, because I think it wasn't just you not having control over your body. Sure, you didn't have control because you didn't know how to, you didn't know what was happening to you. But this is a very common thing that happens on our physical body when we allow ourselves to go. And you allowed, like you surrendered to it, it sounds like.
Oh, well, I did, and I even would let the panic attacks come once I realized, like, fuck it. I don't give a shit. I'll have the panic attack. I don't
Right.
care, you know? And then it would kind of lessen and then it would kind of come and I'm like, okay, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. But I'm like, I don't care. I don't care. I can't breathe. I'm just gonna tell my kids I can't breathe again. You just gotta sit here with me until I can get back up off the floor. I know it's annoying. I'm annoyed too. And so we just kind of started to make it a thing, like, oh, mom's having her thing again. We just all gotta sit down and we gotta breathe with her
That's
and slowly I was
surrender, though. That is surrender.
yes, I guess it is. I guess it is. It still felt like anger to me in some way or like annoyance,
Yeah.
but also like
Well, you don't have to
because
agree with it.
yeah, I guess that's what it is, because you have resistance. You're like, I
Yeah.
want to do something else,
Yeah.
like I really
But
want to
here
get to
we
the
are.
dishes
Let's
and
do this,
yeah,
I guess. Yep.
I know. I guess I can't breathe for the next 30 minutes. So I'll turn on my, we'll just do our thing. Everybody's got to sit down. And so it was kind of beautiful. I mean, it taught me that I actually wasn't open,
Yeah.
that I thought that I was all of these things. I thought that I was spiritual. I was awakening. I'm here for a purpose. I'm actually meant to be rebellious. I'm meant to break cycles. I broke so many cycles in my family. First to go to college. I've never been afraid to speak out when I don't resonate. I have zero fear in those areas, but I didn't give myself credit. I
Yeah.
didn't have the power to uphold any of that and believe that that path was a worthy path. It was just
Yeah.
kind of like, oh, that's just what I do. But that's, it wasn't holding myself again to like a higher standard.
Yeah.
And that's hard. It's that's a practice.
Hmm.
Um and so when I found your courses, I realized too that I was putting a band-aid on all on myself, kind of like a mask, right? I would run when I had anxiety. I would, I would not drink for a long time. I would, all these things that like check the ego validation box,
Yeah.
they're healthy things. I'm not against them, but I wasn't going out with like the oozing blood and rawness of myself and being willing to be like you know, the white blood cells and the red blood cells coming in and being like, this is who I am. I am all of these things. I'm very raw. I've made all of these choices and I'm literally working on it in front of you. And you
Yeah.
either take it or you don't. I
Yeah.
wasn't doing that. And so then I get back on social media, like weird. I can't explain it. I don't know why I got on Facebook. I have no idea. And I see you crying and I see you have a sale. And I immediately turn it off because I'm like, no way. I don't have the money. I don't think I have the time. That's crazy. And then at midnight, I wake up and I just buy your courses.
Yeah.
And I never looked back. I don't think I told anybody. I don't even think I still told my husband. I don't know. I just bought it
Yeah.
and I basically like ate it in one bite. I feel like and um, I decided to just put all of my stories and my truth out there. And slowly but surely, I could see myself in the cycle, in the pattern, in the lesson, and sometimes make a change.
Yeah.
And even better, sometimes not even engage, which is the hardest part, I think, for me still, is to be like, I don't want that lesson. is still really weird to walk away from it because you kind of feel tethered to it. You feel like it's a part of you. So you feel like you're abandoning yourself, but you're not. You're just taking a higher road
Yeah, you're at a crossroads and you chose a different path.
and you chase it. Yeah. And so, I'm participating
Yeah.
now, but I will say it was like really fun listening to you. And then I took your courses and I was felt like I was like, oh, she like had pain.
Yeah.
She she went through, I mean, it makes me tear up because, and I was like, oh, it's not as pretty as like it's okay. It feels this raw. Like it actually feels like a lot. It doesn't, I don't, and that's how, I guess you're living vulnerably and making choices in your life is because you're not, is because you're feeling. I mean, for me, because
Yeah.
I'm looking at my human design, I'm super undefined. Like I'm just open on all
Yeah.
and
Are you a reflector or a projector?
no, I'm actually no, I think those are probably more rare. I feel like I'm more common. I think I'm a manifester
Uh,
generator.
yeah, you're MG. That
Manifesting.
makes sense. Yeah.
Yes. But I'm pretty undefined. I think my root's undefined, my
Yeah.
head's undefined, my heart's undefined. I think my spleen was defined, which was funny because I think that's fear.
Yeah. Spleen
But
is fear.
yeah.
But
But
it's your
yeah,
own
I'm like,
fear. We don't want to go too far into human design because that's a whole
okay.
freaking rabbit hole that I spent many years in. But what I do want to say is I'm glad you brought that up because, I get a lot of pushback, not generally from my own people, but from outsiders for how transparent I am and how much I put out in the world and how raw I am with the world. Like when you bought my sales, I had to physically make the choice to detach from my business and rebirth myself and my business. And so that I needed to have a physical experience of that. And you witnessed that. And people have witnessed since I started this, shoot, almost 8 years ago now. They have seen me go through so many death and rebirths, but I don't hide it. I don't pretend that I'm some uber successful, nothing happens to me, everything's peaches and cream. I'm successful, but it don't look like a lot of other people's success. And if I don't show the raw, the real, the great, the bad, the funky, the weird side of me, then I'm not being authentic. And then I'm not being the change, and I know that that is what I'm meant to do. And so it's important for me to bring this up and that I love that you witnessing that helped you because people need to see that true strength is vulnerability. It's being willing to be seen when it ain't pretty. It doesn't mean you have to go out and spew it on people or go to a party when you're a hot mess. It's not like that, but it's not wearing a mask. It's just being what's real for you and being willing to say like, "Hey, I'm not going today because I am a hot mess and I need to cry today," or whatever. So I'm glad you brought that up because we need to give people permission to be messy. It's okay. There's nothing wrong with you. It's natural.
And I hope that message is coming through more and more for the next generation and even for us because the mask came out in, a lot of like social media and stuff.
Yeah.
I'm really grateful for everything. I think it
Yeah.
has its purpose and I use it all. Um, but
But
it's
it is a
interesting even
highlight reel.
watching. Oh yes, I'm like,
Uh
and it messes with you.
huh.
It really does
Yeah.
because you're like, I don't feel like that. Motherhood did not feel like that. Like, I was like, I don't get it. How come everyone has that and I feel like this,
Yeah.
And then when I would tell moms, some of them would open up and I'm like, okay, I knew it. I knew I knew that it was like that you die too when you have babies.
Yeah.
And depending on your pattern, it just kind of goes with them and then reflects back. And mine was to give energy. So when I was pregnant, I was like, I'm everything. And then they would
Yeah.
leave, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm nothing. I
Yeah.
gave you everything. You were everything. And then
Now
you
you're
came out, and I was
depleted.
like, oh,
Yeah.
yes, 3 times, and
Yeah.
you're like, I can't, okay, I see the pattern. I understand.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it was so helpful when I found you, and you were more authentic than anyone I had ever witnessed. And that rawness, it gave me the courage. It
Yeah.
like ignited my own power like nothing had ever done before. And but then you still have to make the choice to be that power.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I am now,
Yeah.
trying to make those choices. But I will say it's not, it sounds really cool, but it still feels really hard. Like even being
Yeah.
here today, I've been kind of sick. I came to my mom's, husband's working. She takes the three kids out. I'm kind of nervous with her driving away. And now, it's all these little things. It's still scary.
Yeah.
Still doesn't feel, it's not like you're like, but you're like, I know I'm safe. I
Yeah.
know I'm meant to do this. And you just keep, you just one foot in front of the other.
Mhm.
And it does feel good, but it's a little bit of both.
I always tell people the fear doesn't go away. People think that being fearless means, or having courage means that you're not afraid. I have been afraid. Not, okay, let me rephrase. I've had fear. I wouldn't say I was afraid, but I've had fear every step of the way. And this is why I always share my big moves. A lot of the time I share after and I've been through it. Sometimes I've shared right in the middle of it. It's more rare that I do that, but I have developed this toughness inside of me that's like, no, whatever I fear, I'm going to freaking run towards because I don't want anything to have power over me. And it's not like I'm going to do anything dangerous. That's why I always say the danger fear is way different than the fear of the mind that says this is going to happen because it's based upon something else and it's trying to keep you safe. And so whenever there's that type of fear, I just run towards it. I used to think when I was younger, I was so fearless. I wasn't. I was in denial. I was naive. I was medicating. I was numbing. So, of course, I was fearless. I was turning all the fear receptors off. So, the minute I stopped drinking, the minute I stopped eating poison, the minute I cleaned everything out, I was like, holy fear, because all my fear
Oh my
receptors lit
gosh.
up. And so you think, I look back even now and I'm like, God, I never had anxiety. I never had this. I never had that. I was just so fearless and I made these bold moves. And it was like, yeah, because 90% of the time you are numbing your fear receptor. So of course, but that's the thing when you stop doing that and then you start to learn to regulate your fear. And while the journey never ends, it's funny that you were saying that earlier because I had someone message me the other day or ask me on a comment somewhere. I don't remember, but they're like, does it ever end? And I said, no. I said, I'm sorry, it doesn't. But here's the good news. It doesn't get better, but you do. It gets easier. You get so used to it that, like you were doing when you were having your panic attacks, you're like, I just got to go through this. And that's called grace through suffering. And I actually had to have a physical experience, intentional with combo, the frog medicine of grace through suffering. Because when you do surrender to something that you don't want to happen, that you don't like, that is not comfortable, it does take away a lot of the pain. It takes away a lot of the discomfort. So that is what surrender is saying, I don't like this, but this is what's happening. So we're just going to have to go through it. And the cool thing about this that I have to say is you did it with your children and you talk about being the change. Our children are in a brain, they're in a theta brain state for, I'm going to say today's world, probably up till the age of 3, depending on how quickly they move into daycare or kindergarten or those things where they have more influence of programming. So they're very, very susceptible, especially the first 7 years, but the first 3 years, very much so. So the first 7 years of your life was the base programs that are hardwired into your nervous system that you will see the world through for the rest of your life. And so having your children witness you have this thing that was happening and you just go into it and allow it and make them a part of it and see that you weren't, I'm sure that we're never perfect, but I just, I don't know. I just want to commend you on that because so many people hide what they're going through from their kids, whether it's marital issues, they're depressed, whatever. And it's not, again, it's not meant that you're meant to dump it on your kids, but we, our intuition gets destroyed when we feel something's going on, but our parents mask it and show it as something different or tell us they're okay. It's okay to not be okay. It's okay to tell your kids, I'm not doing good today. I'm having a hard day. We'll be okay, but today mom's sad or today mom's angry. It teaches them emotional intelligence. It teaches them that what they feel, they now can have an expression of. They go, oh, okay, what I feel in my mom and dad, I can see, and they're talking about it because they always know. You can lie to them all you want. All you're doing is teaching them that to not trust their intuition. And so it's so important that I highlight that and that part of your story, because I think that people need to hear that. People need to make those shifts, and if you already have grown kids and you already did that, I did it too. Don't shame and blame yourself, right? Because that's a pattern in a cycle where we feel like we're doing the wrong thing, or, oh, I fell in the hole again. Oh, I reacted again. And so then we beat ourselves up and we blame ourselves. And then I'm like, all you're doing is reinfecting. You're just digging it a little deeper when you do that. So instead you're like, shit, I fell in a hole. Let me climb out and do better next time. Let me pay more attention to the holes, and that's what happened in October for you, is that big thing that happened. That is all that pressure, all those things that were happening. Finally, you hit a point of letting go, and it just opened up, and it's like, oh my God, the lights came on. And you're like, I see now, the fog lifted, the lights came on, but you were just pushing through. It's like that. You ever see that meme where the guy has got an axe or a picks, and he's digging a hole, a tunnel, and he's so close and he's about to quit, and it's like a thin line. So many people do that, but once you keep going with that grit, and you're like, even if I have to do it really slow, I'm going to keep going. And all of a sudden the light opens up, and then you kind of fall into this space of exhaustion because you're like, I did it. And then then it begins again.
Yes, it does. It sure does, girlfriend. But I love that you said when you were younger, you thought you were fearless, because once I had my first baby, I was at a point of surrender, right? I was dating somebody, I made a bunch of weird choices, and then, I had to be honest, I had to be vulnerable. They actually proposed. I turned down the proposal, which was a big deal because I didn't, you know, in that pattern, I would have accepted the proposal.
Yeah.
But I made a choice, which was interesting. I can't quite explain it other than spirit had my back,
Yeah.
and they were just with me, and they just said, we're not going to go low for longer. You're going to change now. And I was like, I'm done. And I had no job. I had gotten in trouble. I had actually experienced like some miscarriages and like tower card, right? But like it was like nothing affected me. I was like, okay, whatever. I'll find a roommate. I'll climb. I'll do all the things. And then I started to kind of make choices. I found a roommate. Things worked out, and I was like, I feel like I should be alone for a little while. And I don't really want to be with a man. I've always been in relationships, happy or not. I've always
Yeah.
been with somebody. I've never been single. All my high school, I was with somebody. And, I just one after another. And then I got pregnant.
Yeah.
So super interesting because I made a different choice. But then my pregnancy was actually a gift, for making that different choice. Maybe not everybody would see it like that, but it was
Yeah.
different story for a different time.
Yeah.
But when you surrender, you make that space for that gift to come in that's going to change your life. And that is when I had maybe like I wasn't aware of it, but that's when I changed who I was.
Yeah.
So that old version of myself completely died the moment I got pregnant. And I said, okay, I'm gonna
I have no
go to
choice but to
college
be
and make
different
straight
now.
A's. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get a new job. I'm gonna work with children for the rest of my life, and I'm gonna focus on being the best version of myself. And I never looked back. I mean, but then when you get clear like that, that's when all your fear receptors, you say, turn
Yeah.
on. So I didn't understand that. I was like, how do I go from feeling nothing, jumping off 30-foot bridges
Right.
in the middle of the night when it says not to,
Right.
to not being able to leave my house? Like, I don't get it.
Yeah.
where did this, who am I now? And that helped me have an awareness there, because I still was like, I don't, how
Well,
come I was so cool?
when we have that awakening, you remember, awakening is simply you becoming more aware of self. And I love that I break it down this simply, because I think people put so much pressure on the word awakening that you have to have all these gifts turn on, and you have to start talking to spirit, and you have to be able to do alchemy and magic and this and that. Y'all, it is not that. It is not. Those are cool things. We all have those abilities. We all will use them in different ways. Most people don't even do them professionally, and aren't meant to. But an awakening is just you becoming more aware of yourself. And when that happens, you're utilizing more of your brain, more of your nervous system. You become more sensitive. You're more in tune with things in your body. And so it's it's a combination of us cleaning ourselves up and stripping, and then being able to actually notice our fear receptors, right? Because a lot of us numbed them, let's be honest, with not just alcohol, but many weird habits. But it's also the sensitivity to that, that we were becoming aware of those things in a different way. And that helps you to learn how to regulate that, regulate your nervous system, regulate your response and reaction. And I've been on this journey for a long time, and I can tell you the sensitivity continues to expand, and that's why the work that I try to share with the world and teach is about integration, taking that space to, once you go through those massive awarenesses, to actually go out and live as a human and make different choices based upon those expansion that you just had. Because if you don't do that, you just continue to blow yourself open, and your life just turns into more and more chaos. And so you have to slow down. But people get shiny object syndrome when they go through awakenings. Oh, this, oh, that, oh, this, oh, that. And I've actually turned clients down. I'm like, no, no, you need to take some time. You have to take some time, because otherwise I'm hurting you. I'm not helping you. And I just won't do that. It's not, that's how you know I'm not here for the money. You know what I mean? It just doesn't work that
Yeah.
way. So I do want to end the episode on asking you, and just to be fair, I did not prepare her for this. So um, if you have a couple of tips for not just moms, but women in general who may resonate with your story, that you think are things that if you could do it over again, that you would do differently. And I do also want to touch on the fact that you did talk about being a mom, because that is a big excuse that we get. I'm a mom,
Mm-hmm.
I have a job, I have all of these things. I get this excuse a lot. And I'm like, uh, y'all, I ran two businesses, had two dogs, a cat, three kids, and a husband who did not do much of anything.
Yeah.
And I'm a father that was dying. If I can do it, you can do it. I don't want to hear about it. Right. So, what would be your tips to those who are listening that resonate with your story? Like, what would you do different? What would you want to know that you didn't know then?
I would have liked for, I would have liked to have the vulnerability more available to me, um, more so than it was. So when I had a baby and I said, hey, can I ask you a question, to another mom? And I would go into what I was feeling, and they would say, you should see a doctor. Um, like, I felt like they were like, shame.
Yeah.
How you feel lonely? You feel like you've lost a part of yourself? I nobody ever sat down. I remember calling my mom and being like, okay, mom, I'm sorry for everything I've ever done. I now see that that is the scariest thing I could have ever done to you in the entire world. And I'm very sorry. But also, like, why didn't you tell me what this was going to feel like? And she was like, well, I think if I would have told you, one, you wouldn't have believed me. But two, we discovered in that moment that we were all wearing masks, that things
Yeah.
were happening in my family's life that maybe I wasn't seeing, because they didn't know how to be honest, because they were never taught.
Yeah.
And so,
Finding someone who can hold space and finding someone who's real, who's going to be transparent and hold space for you and not judge you. Having at least one person like that in your corner, I take it.
which is going to be yourself, right? So once
Ultimately, yes, but you do also need someone
I guess,
externally. You do, but it does start with you. You have to be that for yourself. Otherwise, you won't find that person, right?
Right. And so I think the world is getting there. I don't think it was there when I was there. And so again, I just felt like I was lied to and I had to go through some of that on my own.
Yeah.
But you'll know safety when you see it, and don't shy away from it. Go to that person and say, "This is what I'm feeling," and open up and be vulnerable. And that's what I did for myself. I went out and I made a YouTube channel and I didn't dump. I was very intentional, but I put all my old stories there. I talked about my eating disorders. I talked about everything that I was ever ashamed of in a really intentional way for 5 months. And I was met with some really weird stuff, but I was also met with the very small people that are authentic. And so I feel better knowing that there are Johannas out there, and knowing that there are mothers that feel similar to me. And if they can't talk about it, that's okay. Because with this, I do want them to know they're not alone. And
Yeah.
their feelings are getting them closer to that awakening, which
Yeah.
is just more sensitive. It doesn't feel like you do feel empowered,
Yeah.
but it doesn't necessarily feel okay. It's, or you're sensitive.
Yeah.
You're sensitive to grass. You're sensitive to light. You're
Yeah.
sensitive to your kids' emotions. You're sensitive. I mean, you can hear and feel.
Yeah. The world comes alive in a way that you just can't explain. And it's hard to explain that to people. So shame heals when stories are revealed in safe places. This is something that the guides have said to me forever. And so I think what she's trying to say is, find the places or the people where you can share your story vulnerably and transparently, and find your tribe, find your people, because you're not crazy. You're not crazy. There's nothing wrong with you. And it's okay. You're okay.
That is what I'm trying to say. Yeah, find your people so you can have your voice,
Yeah.
so you can see it in a safe place and it's not reflected back in judgment.
Yeah.
It took me a while, but I did. My people really were there all along. It was
Yeah.
my family. It was my mom and my sister
But they probably
and my
didn't feel
kids.
safe to reveal either, And so when you
Right.
establish that safety, everything changes. Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah. Any
I
last
want to
tips?
say,
Yeah.
well, with your course, I did become a better mother because I was creating things unintentionally for my own children. And so with your course, I was able to correct. We are able to have conversations now. I am able to say, "What are you feeling?" Well,
Oh, good.
how do you want to proceed with that? And so my 4-year-old is now like, "Well, what do you see?" And and my 7-year-old will try to break it down, and my 2-year-old is still running around naked, but that's what he's supposed to be doing, I
Freedom.
think. Yeah. So he's like, he's good, he's happy, he's still just
I love
biting, and
that.
yeah. But it's really cool because with that, I changed everything. My whole family gets to have a conversation now, and they get to be themselves and I get to be myself. And it's a little awkward because sometimes I'm like, "Well, I don't really want you to feel that way. I don't really want you to see that. Like, why do you
Yeah.
see that? That feels uncomfortable to me." But
Yeah.
I have to let it be because I'm like, "Well, they see it for a reason." I
Yeah.
mean, it'll enlighten us at one point, but I
That's
can hold space for
amazing.
them.
I can't believe I didn't know that, and I'm very humbled, and it makes me very happy that you took the courses, because you teaching your children energy management and emotional intelligence at such a young age, by giving them the permission to feel and to ask themselves, like, get curious about what they're feeling and what it means, and empowering them to with the choice of, well, what do you want to do with this? Because what do we do as parents? We try to throw a fucking band-aid on it. And
Mm-hmm.
so
Oh,
no wonder we all grow up numbing and medicating, because our parents were like, we don't, especially, so we're in different generations. I'm a Gen X, I grew up with older school parents, and it's like, just stop crying, pull your big girl
oh,
panties up, you're whining too much. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to deal with it, or they just isolate you. So you have to go in your room and you don't know what to do with your emotions. And a lot of people will, I've heard so many people, a lot of people are saying, like, we're raising a generation of pansies, or weak people. And I think there's a balance between understanding that we can be emotional, we can explore our emotions, we can discuss our emotions. And that's not weakness, that's strength. And yes, there might be we need to probably have put in a little bit more structure and discipline with some of the generation that's growing up right now, but that are, turning into teens and adults. But that's a different story. But I am really over hearing people talk about emotions and expressing your emotions as a weakness, because if you look up the definition of strength, it's not repressing your emotions and pretending to be a badass. It just isn't. That's not what it is. So congratulations. I commend you, because if that's right there, that just sets you apart on motherhood. It really does. It really does. And you should know that.
Thank you. I mean, I'm not, it's not perfect,
We never will get perfect. Don't
yeah,
ever aim for
there's still moments
perfection.
where, but now I can actually say, like, I made a mistake. I don't like what I did here. Whereas I used to in the beginning with your courses, I would be like, how was I today? Like, did I, and they'd be like, oh, you didn't do, and I was like, I'm giving you my power again.
Yep.
4-year-old, take it back. You can't tell me how good I was.
Yeah.
And so I did. I really went through the journey with them, because they were I call them they're my bosses. Kind of, my husband will call and he's like, how are they today? I was like, oh, one just drank too much, the other one keeps crying, and they're out of control today. I can't do anything right, and I'm not getting a raise. And so, but I stopped giving them my power too. I'll say, like, today I didn't like how I did this, and I'm really sorry. I felt out of control because the screaming was just, it was going on and on. And so I screamed with you,
Yeah.
but I don't like that. I want to do different, but it's not like I'm giving it to him to be like, and so
And then when
we're
you
able
do
to do that
different,
now.
you show them my actions match my words. I said I was going to do different, and I did. I tried to do different. Even if you don't get it right, they can see that mom did something different today. Kids are so intelligent.
They
Like
can,
they
they're
can
so
see it.
beautiful, aren't they? They
Yeah.
don't get enough credit.
No, they
I
are
mean,
they are
they're just so
mirrors.
unworldly.
I tell
Yeah.
people, like, when you have kids, they are going to reflect back to you your inner children and your wounds like nobody's business. And this is why, if you look back through the generations, no wonder we ended up where we were, because nobody was talking about anything. Nobody was dealing with anything. We go back to my parents' generation, everything was swept under the rug. We didn't talk about shit. So we're going through the other extreme right now. And I think it's a beautiful thing. The transparency, even at the highest levels in the world stage to families, it's messy, it's uncomfortable, it's wild at times, but it's fucking necessary. It's so necessary.
And
So
I read
necessary.
a quote the other day, and it was like, for anything to grow, it has to be completely deconstructed, like a seed, right?
Yep.
Because we are seeds.
Yep.
It's all planting seeds. And so, yeah, everything's being blown apart.
Yep.
But
And when
there's
that
not
plant
as much
dies,
fear.
when that
Right.
plant dies, it becomes the mulch for then for it
Oh,
to grow back next year. So
that's amazing too, because
yeah.
it's different than.
Mhm. You have to go through those processes. If you ever see somebody, and this is not to throw shame or shade or judgment, but if you ever have somebody in your life who never changes, they're always the same person, they always have the same reaction, they're always doing the same things, that person is dying. Because for growth, you have
Mhm.
to go through evolution. Everything in nature that surrounds us is this way on purpose. Everything on this planet is a metaphor. Everything is trying to tell you how to live, how to be, how to move, how to let go, how to grow. If the plant's not growing, you change its environment, right? So everything around you is trying to help you and show you. All you have to do is be willing to see it in a different perspective, and everything in your world will shift literally overnight. You'll be like, holy shit, and it goes deeper and deeper. Yesterday, I had a session with a beautiful woman, and I always learn from my channeling, and with my channeling and multidimensionality and going deeper and deeper into that, I was channeling and I heard myself say something, and it was like everything went click, 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 click. And I was like trying not to freak out in front of her, because the version of me that was witnessing the session was like, holy shit, it was here the whole time, the whole time, the
Love
whole
this.
time. I was like, I kept channeling this, and I wasn't connecting the dots. And for whatever reason, I said it a little bit differently to her, and everything clicked. And I was like, and I got off that session, and I was going to see a friend, and I was like on cloud 80. I was just like, this is amazing. So it doesn't matter how long you've been on the journey, the awareness just gets deeper and more expansive. And so the something you have known for 5 years can go a little bit deeper. And it's like you never knew it. You're like, how did I not know this? I've been doing this forever, you know? So I had to bring that in because just you have to remember that we just go deeper and deeper and deeper into it and have more insight and more depth to what we already know. It's not anything you're learning, anything you're experiencing is not new. It's just that you've gone into the depth, right? You've gone deeper into the book. You've gone deeper into the file. That's it. It's all it is. And it's a beautiful
And
journey.
I think that's the moral of the story is find your people and find your purpose. Because
Yep.
even in your courses, you said it doesn't matter what job you have, you're still always going to do
Yep.
what your purpose is,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which is, connect with people. And so if you're doing that, then you are going to have those aha moments and
Yeah.
awarenesses. And I think that's what I realized in the beginning of motherhood. I was like, okay, that's old, but now what's this? And I
Yeah.
had to find who was authentic so I could have those mind blowing moments because you really can't do it alone.
No, you can't.
Even this is reminding me of that because I was alone for a little while. I've been alone for a lot of days. Husband's out of town, and so like
Yeah.
this is even reminding me. I'm so thankful I did this because I'm like, oh, I got to get back on the horse. I got
Yeah.
to communicate again
There's a
so
time
I
and a
can have these
period
moments.
when we're meant to be alone and be in seclusion and go through that. But make no mistake, we are not meant to do this alone. You are meant to have relationships because those are the mirrors. And without those mirrors, it's really hard to see your blind spots. And so all types of relationships, friendships, parents, kids, romantic partnerships are usually the brightest of mirrors next to your children. So you are not meant to do this alone. You cannot grow alone. You just can't. Even if you look at trees and flowers, they need cross pollination. It's just, I mean, again, everything is showing you. Everything is showing you. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being willing to share your story and your insights, and hopefully people connect to you and resonate with your story. And I will link Elise's social platforms underneath the podcast because she does share on social media. And if you feel a connection to her, I want you to be able to continue to connect to her and just hear her words and build a relationship with her. So if that's something that calls to you, you can just look at the description box below and you can find all of her contact information.
And then for you, Johanna, I wrote you a little thing to end this with um, because I'm very grateful for you. And I see a long future with you. I don't know if I've known you in the past or what this is, but I feel very aligned with you and connected to you. So I want to support you and show you that because you are really important to me. And what you do and your work and your wisdom is very important to me. And it resonates with my soul. It's different. It's deeper. It's inexplicable, right? I don't need words to explain what I felt when I found you. Um, so I just want to say I'm infinitely grateful for you and for your platform and for being here. So thank you, thank you, thank you. It means a lot to me.
Thank you for sharing that. I really
And this is
appreciate
an
it.
end of a chapter for me.
Yeah.
So I got to begin something with you and I got to end it with you. And that was kind of unintentional. But again, I'm just really thankful I get to do that.
Yeah. Well, amazing. Well, I love you. And this won't obviously be the end, but for everyone out there listening, we will see you in the next episode. Hey, thanks for listening. This episode was brought to you by johannaburkhardt.com, where it's time to defy the limits of your mind and step into your multidimensional mastery. Don't forget to subscribe so that you never miss an episode. See you next time.